Welcome to the Explainer. Listen, if you're building anything in financial analytics, the rulebook is basically being rewritten as we speak. So today, we're not just going to talk about the future. We're going to hand you the actual architect's blueprint to build it.
Okay, so let's jump ahead a bit. Picture this. It's 2026. And finance? It's not just about doing things online anymore. We're in a whole new era of what's being called autonomous finance. This is where AI isn't just crunching numbers from last quarter, it's actively making decisions, shaping things in real time. This is the new world we have to build for.
But here's the catch, right? With all this new power comes a huge new bullseye. This automated world is like a gold mine for attackers, and we're seeing a crazy 65% spike in attacks on financial web apps and APIs. I mean, the stakes have just never been this high.
So that leads to the big question, the one that every tech and finance leader is trying to figure out right now. How in the world do you build a platform for this new reality? A platform that's not just smart, but also tough enough to survive.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We've laid out this explainer just like a real architect's blueprint. We'll start with the new reality, then get into the four main pillars: the data foundation, the AI engine, the security shield, and the practical build. And then we'll put it all together to see the final design.
Okay, first things first. Before any architect draws a single line, they have to understand the land they're building on, right? The environment. And that's exactly what we're going to do now.
So here's the fundamental shift you have to get your head around. We're moving on from just digitization, putting paper forms online. That's old news. We are now officially in the era of agentic workflows. Now, what does that mean? Think of AI less like a fancy calculator and more like a junior analyst. An analyst that can take a complex task, run with it, and get it done without needing someone to hold its hand every step of the way.
All right, so now that we know the landscape, let's get to our first pillar. Look, before you can even dream about using fancy AI, you have to get your data foundation right. I mean, this is totally non-negotiable. It's the bedrock of everything.
This slide actually settles a debate that's been going on for years. Data fabric versus data mesh. People used to argue about which one was better. Well, the 2026 thinking is they're not competitors. They actually work together. Think of it like this. The data mesh lets your business teams own their data, while the data fabric is the tech that stitches it all together. They're really just two sides of the same coin.
And where is all this data coming from? Well, for any AI to be worth anything, it has to drink from a clean well, right? It needs trusted, governed data. We're talking about building that elusive, single source of truth by pulling from literally everything. Your ERPs like SAP and Oracle, your CRMs, market data feeds, you name it. Because that old saying, garbage in, garbage out? Yeah, it's never been more true.
Okay, so our data foundation is poured and set. Now we can start building the cool stuff, the intelligence layer. This is the brains of our whole operation.
And when we say agent AI, please don't think we're just talking about a slightly better chatbot. No. This is a massive leap forward. These are systems where you can give them a high-level goal, something like, hey, figure out why our profit margin is shrinking. And it will actually go and form a plan, pull the necessary data, run the analysis, and come back with an answer.
And this here shows you exactly how it works day to day. A person, a human, sets the goal, analyze our budget variances. Then the AI agent does all the grunt work. It crunches the numbers, spots the trends, and can even write up a first draft of the story. But, and this is the key part, look at that last step, human review and control. The human is still in the driver's seat.
Okay, I love this table because it just cuts through all the noise and the hype. So, is AI a game changer for financial forecasting and fraud detection? Absolutely. But, is it going to take the CFO's job? No way. Let's be real. AI is a beast at data tasks, but it just doesn't have that strategic judgment, the context that a human leader brings to the table.
All right, so we've got our data foundation and our AI engine. But you know what? None of that matters if the whole thing can be knocked over. So let's move to pillar number 3, putting up a serious security shield around this entire structure.
The only philosophy that matters in modern security is called zero trust. And the idea is really simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Never trust, always verify. You basically assume that threats could be anywhere, inside your network, outside your network. So every single request to access anything has to be proven, every single time.
Yeah, this visual just nails the difference. The old way of doing things was this castle and moat idea. You build a big wall, and you kind of trust everyone who's already inside. Zero trust?
It throws that whole idea in the garbage. It doesn't care if you're inside or outside. You have to prove who you are and what you're allowed to touch, constantly.
And why is this such a big deal? Well, look at the numbers. The threat is just growing at a mind-boggling pace. By 2031, experts expect a ransomware attack to hit something, a business, a person, a device, every 2 seconds. Just think about that. Your old security model just can't keep up with that kind of onslaught.
Okay, we've designed the what, and we've talked about the why. So now for that final, crucial pillar, the how. We've got the blueprint, now let's talk about the actual nuts and bolts, the tools, and the timeline to get this thing built.
You know, a huge principle for any modern platform is that there's no silver bullet, no one-size-fits-all solution. The best architects use what they call a polyglot approach, which is just a fancy way of saying they pick the right tool for the right job. So, you might use Go for its incredible speed with transactions, but then use .NET for your core, super-regulated systems, and then maybe something like Node.js to coordinate all your AI agents. It's all about using the best tool for each specific part of the job.
And the great news is, this doesn't have to be some massive 5-year project that never gets finished. Here is a totally doable 30-day plan to get your first win. Just pick one super narrow workflow, like generating commentary on budget variances. Prove that it works, show the value, and then you can scale it up from there.
You know, this quote just perfectly sums up everything we've been talking about, the whole strategic point of this blueprint.
And that really is the end goal here. This isn't about replacing your people. It's about making them superhuman. It's about magnifying their ingenuity. You automate all the repetitive, mind-numbing analysis so your team can focus on what they were hired for, to interpret, to strategize, and to make those big, important calls.
So, there it is. The architect's blueprint for the financial analytics platform of 2026. The foundation is laid out for you. The only question left is, what are you going to build on it?